Hello, friends from across the globe. This is The Way Back In. This is going to be our first episode. Internal Family Systems, also known as IFS, is something that can change the world. We think it's an incredible therapy for people with trauma, like me and my sister. We both love it. My sister introduced it to me several years ago, and it's been life-changing for me. And the cool thing about IFS is if you know enough about it and you've read up and you've done it enough, you can lead yourself in an IFS therapy if you feel comfortable. And so we decided to go ahead and do that today. I enjoyed it. I learned some things about myself for sure. I think we're going to do more episodes like this in the future. We hope you enjoy it. This is The Way Back In, our first episode. I'm John, your co-host, and my sister Tracy is our other co-host. Enjoy.
We were born whole. Given whatever religion that you were taught as a child or whatever, you were born whole. You were born complete. Yeah, completely. And as we age, and especially when we are young children, when there are fractures in our outward system, so like with our parents, with our home, the self will start to fracture to survive whatever is happening. It will take on a new role. It will lose this role of being creative, being playful. Learning more about IFS, learning about anything gives it more value, right, to me personally. And the more I value something, the more I care about it and the more I'm willing to protect it. The work is so internal. You have the practitioner and you have the guider or whatever you want to call it, soothing the inner system. If the system is able to recognize that there is a blending happening, then you can work with that blended part as long as you're not getting like too dysregulated. If it goes beyond that as the scope for the guide, like then you have to back off, right? If they get a little bit too into it, like a fight or flight mode. And yeah, it just started to get me thinking about like trauma response a lot. I feel like you were also diagnosed with PTSD. What is it?
CPTSD.
CPTSD? Yeah. I've just been thinking about that. I was thinking about trauma response and, like I'm a parent of young children and it's so easy to like get into like, this is an emergency right now.
Yeah.
About everything.
Seriously.
Yeah. So that's where my head has been if we want to, and I would love to know what you think about all that.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, IFS, as you know, is huge. Once you introduced me to IFS, I feel like my whole life really was able to pick up and do better and change for the better. And I was able to read I just started reading all the books, with Richard Schwartz. And I kind of just go off of his lead really in his books, which is, he does a lot of self-guided things for people to do. But just there's always the caveat of like, if you have serious trauma and deep things, you should be working through it with an IFS therapist. That's the best way to do it. But the unique thing about IFS therapy is like you can do it on your own really well. And so most of what I've done has been on my own. And I follow Schwartz's lead with that in his books and everything like that. Even in the recent book that I'm writing, I have IFS practices in there. And I try to go off of Schwartz and what he says in his books. But there's the disclaimer, like parts work is crazy sometimes. Like it can get insane especially if you have like a really wounded part or a really defensive part. This is the thing about parts, is that they don't feel safe. That's literally the reason why they had to turn into the parts they were. And so in order to do it effectively, you have to help them feel safe. And yeah, that can be dangerous if you're kind of unable to convince your part that that they're safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's a lot about like showing up with a calm clarity that the presence of self is, I think about it as a child and like in these moments when probably unreasonably I was like stressed or scared about something because little kids are unreasonable. They don't have the front part of their brain working.
Yeah.
So they're literally unreasonable. And just imagining having a calm, steady person there, just being like, "Hey, wow, you're feeling a lot right now." And then it makes sense, right? Instead of, like, "Oh my gosh, I'm getting," like a parent getting blended with your emotions and then the spiral happening. And so, it's this beautiful, I feel like my therapist calls them do-overs, right? Where we get to go back into these really intense moments as a child and relive them with ourselves as
Mhm.
this like steady leader. And we get to, I love the quote, "It's never too late to have a happy childhood." Um,
That's cool, yeah.
and like you get to go back, and sometimes I waver. I'm like, am I like gaslighting myself in a way by going back and like working with these parts and like trying to remember things?
Oh,
Um,
not at
but
all.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem that way, and my therapist confirms that I'm not. But sometimes I still have a part. It's a part that's like
Yeah.
that really doesn't like to forget, because it's like, if you forget, you're absolving these people of responsibility, which is not the way. It's like, if I move forward and heal, I get to get to the next place where these parts feel safe and they get to do their real roles, which is like be creative, be playful, have fun, laugh.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's really interesting how the parts can open up a lot of creativity because creativity really, for me personally, it only happens when I feel safe and when I
Mm,
feel whole and connected. I know that's not for everyone, but my mind needs to feel happy and whole and safe before I can create things because
mhm,
creating things is inherently vulnerable. You are putting things out in the world that could be shit, that might just be for you, that is putting yourself in a position of vulnerability. And in order to be creative, you have to be vulnerable. In order to be vulnerable, you have to have self love and be able to take criticism and be able to, handle a rejection and things like that. And so, like, my part, I have two main wounded exiles that
mm,
really fear. One fears abandonment and one fears kind of like uselessness or worthlessness.
mm,
And when they're freed up, they're like just a kick in the ass, man. They're like just like, "Let's go do some shit. Like, let's do everything,
yeah.
and let's not give a shit, if people don't ca are
Mhm,
rejecting or not." And so it really moves your whole self into a more of a fullness, which I think is what
mhm.
you're trying to get at. And as far as the gaslighting part goes, we can sometimes think like, "Am I crazy? Am I crazy for doing this or that?" Like, that's yourself gaslighting yourself in a way, and it's like this Audio Slave song I keep listening to is, "To be yourself is all you can do. To be yourself
Mhm,
is all you can do," and he just says that over and over,
mm,
and I just feel like that's pretty damn true.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think like these parts, these exiles, right? If you're not super familiar with IFS, we were born whole, given whatever religion that you were taught as a child or whatever, you were born whole, you were
Yes,
born
born whole, born
complete.
perfect, complete, yeah.
Yeah, completely. And as we age, and especially when we are young children, when there are fractures in our outward system, so like with our parents, with our home, the self will start to fracture to survive whatever is happening. It will take on a new role. It will lose this role of being creative, being playful. And, for example, let's say your parents get divorced and you stick with your mom, and your mom doesn't have enough self-sourcing to, be a lead in parenting. So she takes you and she turns you into basically another parent. She parentifies. What my therapist says, you were promoted too early to this role.
That's good, yeah.
So you got promoted to be a parent when you're like 6 years old. And so these parts of you that used to have freedom, right? This whole point is like freedom to express. Now they have a role. They're like, okay, I need to be responsible for my younger sister. I need to make sure, I need to be vigilant that my mom is okay. Because if my mom's not
Right.
okay, then I don't feel okay. And then you grow older, and these parts, they start to become even more stratified. They move further apart from you, from self, because you, through actions, keep confirming to these parts that they need to exist, right? You go into a relationship with somebody. You're probably more drawn to somebody who has like a helplessness and a neediness because that's what felt like normal and that's what felt like love to you. That role, those parts keep getting confirmed because then you continue to be needed. So you continue to need to be vigilant and responsible for other people's emotions. And so the part thinks, I'm doing this right. This is what I'm doing. But eventually, because this is not the innate role of those parts, they wear down and you start to show resentfulness, bitterness, anger,
Mhm.
sadness, these things that don't feel like this natural expression of who you are.
Right, or they start doing things that are protection mechanisms that
Mhm.
are harmful to even other people or harmful to yourself, but it's all really it's a trauma response, a protection mechanism by your part trying to keep you safe somehow, but it's still a little kid and it doesn't really understand quite how to keep you safe, so it'll even hurt other people in order to do that.
Mhm. Yes, exactly. And it just keeps going until there's a moment where you are like, okay, there are parts of me that I really need to go back to, right? There's this all of these parts are the protectors and the managers, right? Managing everything, the vigilance, the protector who says, like, you're not fucking getting anywhere near me right now. The firefighters, those are the ones in big situations. Like, I literally think about a firefighter going into a house with an axe, and it's like, I don't care what I get to smash or break or burn to the ground. I'm getting you and we're getting out of here. I don't care if I have to scream, shout, yell, whatever. And so taking all of that, all of these parts, that all they're trying to do is get back to this precious little you that had a moment when you were 6 years old that then guided your entire life to where it is now. I mean, it's a wild thing to think about.
It is wild to think about, and it's crazy how all the psychology kind of interacts with each other as far as like the ego goes and how the ego is formed. Because the way I see it, the ego is formed the same way the parts are, right? When you're younger and as you're growing in society and you're faced with these what you perceive to kind of be life or death situations, even though they're
Mhm.
not. But as a child, you perceive them that way. So you have to build these masks. And as you're building these masks, you're basically building your ego, your alter ego, your false self.
Right.
And we can call them different things like the false self, the ego, the parts, the firefighters, whatever they are. But there is a we can all, I think, agree now psychologically there's a deeper, like a subconscious part to who we are, and
Mhm.
that is typically running the show. It's like 95% of our thoughts and everything are like subconscious, um, and only 5% is like a conscious thing that we decide. So to me, it's just like the quickest way to access your subconscious. Like
Mm.
people before Schwartz came around, like people would be trying to access these parts of themselves for decades, trying to meditate or whatever. This stuff's always been around. This isn't new, right? It's just we have new language for it.
Yeah.
Schwartz gave us new language for it with the parts and everything. The further I think that you go into IFS, it's almost like the layers kind of keep unfolding, and you
Mhm.
kind of find out that, well, maybe even that part of you has a few parts of its own. You're like,
I
"Oh my god, now I'm just my mind's blown." So, yeah.
Yes, that is so true. There's been a few times where I'm being led by my therapist, and it's like I have one part that's coming forward, like wants to be very visible. And she is so astute. She'll be so quick to recognize that this part is not actually being open. It's doing exactly its role, which it's protecting some like other parts that are within this part. A lot of times I use, like, for me, like, she'll ask me to describe what it looks like, and a lot of times it's very visual for me. I always have my eyes closed and I'm just really seeing these strong imagery in my mind. And it's almost never like a human shape. It's like colors and blobs and textures of these parts.
Mhm.
And then I like crack them open or peel them open, and there's something else inside. I mean, it's the onion is a good example, but it's a fascinating tool that is, like you said, really accessible for people if you can get a hold of one of his books. I mean, there's on Insight Timer, he has a bunch of meditations that are really good. Meditating, like guided meditations, are really effective for IFS. As you can tell, it's been really helpful for both of us.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And I'm sitting here thinking about the people who are listening who maybe are not really familiar with IFS, and they're like, "What is this IFS they're talking about?" It's really making quite a cultural splash right now, but that's because it's so effective. I think at what it
Mhm.
does and how it helps us to access our minds. But IFS, yeah, stands for Internal Family Systems. It's basically just a psychological map for our minds and how we kind of create these alter egos and these parts that need to try and help us survive. And then as we get older, they kind of stay younger and end up causing some issues for us if we don't regulate it. So, how would you feel about doing a little IFS session on me?
If you're willing, I'm willing.
Well, it just depends on if I have any parts that are willing.
That's true.
I think I do, though. I mean, I know there's a couple in there, they're like, "Don't you fucking talk to me right now," but there's probably a few in there that are like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's."
Yeah, okay. I mean, I am not an IFS trained practitioner. I've done it for about 4 years now with my therapist, so anything that happens is with consent from you, John.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
And,
literally, I do it by myself, so I don't know what else could
I
go
know.
wrong, so let's do it.
What could go wrong? We end here, like, throwing our phones and lighting them on fire and not talking for, like, 5 years. What could go wrong? Just
Oh,
kidding.
come on.
That would never happen. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to work through this like how my therapist works through with me. Because again, I'm not a professional. So you can have your eyes opened or closed, but try to feel your feet on the floor, soften your shoulders, relax your tongue, and taking a moment to be here now, as Ram Dass would say, feeling the breath lifting as you inhale and drawing back in as you exhale. And even though it's early, there still may be parts of you that are coming forward. But before even choosing a part, checking in with the body, noticing one particular body part that may be standing out to you right now, and localizing your attention to this body part. It could be as big as your skin or as small as a fingernail. And in whatever capacity, starting to become curious about what this body part is telling you and where it's coming from.
Yeah, so I'm getting a pretty clear feeling right now from my gut, and I don't know why this is coming up this morning, and it's vulnerable for me to talk about it. Okay, but I have this part that is telling me that it is afraid that I'm in my older age that like I'm not going to be attractive, afraid that I'm like going to let myself go, and that I'm not going to be healthy, and that it wants me to make sure that I'm stop smoking and like start working out more, and like this is like my health part, but I can tell it's afraid, and I'd prefer for my motivations for my health not to be out of fear, but that's the part that seems to be coming up right now.
So you have this part that is trying to protect you from something. What does this part look like?
A child, I would say somewhere around like pretty young, like 9 maybe. I don't know why a 9 my 9-year-old self gives a shit about that, but, that seems to be around the age.
Um, okay, so this 9-year-old self is feeling very nervous about body shape and how you're presented, how you guys are presented to the world. What does it mean to that 9-year-old?
Sees it as a way to stay safe. He sees it as a way to make sure that I'm respected and not, not respected in a sense of, like, needing respect, but just wanting to make sure that, like, other people see me in a positive light. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's probably mostly it, and I think maybe the reason why is, there's a fear of not being taken seriously maybe?
Does that theme has that come up in your life lately that you don't feel like you've been taking seriously?
I think that I've felt that way my whole life in a lot of ways. Yeah, for sure. Especially by like authority figures, bosses. Yeah. So I think lately for sure, it feels like I have a position the last few years that I almost have to like feel like I'm screaming in order to be heard.
Mhm.
So maybe that has something to do with it. But yeah, my whole life I think maybe I feel like I've been struggling to be heard. Maybe that's
Mhm.
why I have started going into writing more because it's a way I can be heard. Yeah, it's interesting how that's tying back to my body image. Maybe it's that one of those base fears of rejection or abandonment.
If you can go to that 9-year-old self and you just ask if you can sit or be close to him, no agenda, not trying to heal this 9-year-old part. You just want to be a witness to the pain, sending out just a full hearted acceptance from your heart to his heart.
Like I hear
And
you. Like I hear what you're saying. I feel you. I understand. I'm
hmm
not judging. I'm here. We're in this together.
hmm yeah, and just continuing to send out this acceptance and validation to this very young you. How's that part feeling about this?
It's feeling good. I think it's realizing along with me that when we were 9 or around that age, our teachers did not really listen to us.
Hmm.
And that kind of started this. It didn't probably start it because, we always had a little bit of tumultuous time at home. So I probably already felt like I didn't have a voice at home. And then in school, I felt like I didn't have a voice and that I was sometimes ridiculed by my teachers because I was a little bit of a slower learner when I was younger. And I didn't talk very much. I'm remembering just as a child in school how rough that was for me because I was a very gentle soul. I really took to heart what teachers said about me, especially. That part, that's where that fear is being originated from, is actually from school, teachers, all of the baggage that came with that is being carried on now into my adult life in the form of make sure you're heard, make sure you're taken seriously. And I
Mm-hmm.
just want to accept that part and say, I love you. Thank you so much for trying to protect me from that.
What about, can you go back to that part and continue to sit with that part? Everything you said makes so much sense, but just see if, can we let that part speak for itself? It doesn't need to say anything. Maybe it's giving you an image of something or a color or texture. Maybe it really does have something it wants to say out loud and it wants you to hear maybe for the first time.
Yeah, I'm getting that, he's feeling a little shy, a little timid right now, still not feeling fully safe, which is probably my fault,
No.
um,
And just continue to
but I
send
am
out
getting
that open-hearted
yeah,
acceptance.
I'm getting like definitely a feeling of warmth,
Mhm.
like this part is grateful that we've taken the time to listen to him today because he hasn't felt like I've understood, really, and that it's a good feeling to be heard and to know that, he's being taken seriously and that, you know, we know why he feels the way he does. And I'm also getting that because of this interaction, he's feeling a lot more safe, a lot
Mhm.
less worried about body image, but still definitely something that the worry isn't the body image, the worry is not being taken seriously, and I guess not really being important or loved there, but we're finding more clarity, and so we're thankful for that.
Yeah. So maybe you could ask that part since there's still some, understandably so, protection. There might be a protector that's still kind of sitting at the forefront of that part saying, I'm not really quite sure that we can trust you completely. So maybe you could ask this part or these parts if there's a time of day or a situation where you can invite them in to be with you throughout the day so that you can continue to show up and be present beyond when they are really speaking to you, like in the easeful moments as well. When can you all be together?
So weirdly enough, I'm getting like a lot more anxiety coming up from the part, especially when you mentioned there might be a protector there. I
Mm.
feel like there is, and that brought a lot of anxiety to it, knowing that it's
Mhm.
even there doing this. But
Yeah.
I just want to say all are accepted. I know that it is all in our best self interest that we need to work together on these things. But yeah, this protector is terrified that we won't be taken seriously. I don't really know how to help them not to feel that way because my true self that really doesn't, we know our true selves don't care if we're hurt or not. Like we're very
Mhm.
happy and content the way we are, and we don't like need people to hear us or take us seriously in our true forms. It's definitely going to be I'm going to need to work with this quite a bit more because
Yeah.
this is definitely something that's deeply rooted in me. And just having the clarity of that is already helpful in and of itself.
Mhm.
So what I can do is I
Yeah.
can commit to try and hear this part more often, not to push it away and not to say it's wrong. I think that's where its anxiety is coming up is that it'll think that as it comes up during the day with me sometime that my first thing is going to be like, yeah, you're wrong. And
Mm.
I think that it's afraid I'm going to do that. So I can make the commitment to bring this part up during the day and to talk to him and to stay open and instead of just saying you're wrong, saying, you know what, you're right. And for what you've been doing for me, we've been surviving for a long time. Survive, survive, survive. And when you're surviving, you do need to have that validation. You do need to be like, I'm here. Hopefully we can eventually give this part, a little bit something else to focus on and work on with me while we continue to work through the neuroses of kind of this feeling I get of like needing to stay relevant and fit and all this, I guess.
Mhm. You need to stay acceptable to society
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
have, yeah. Just bringing in something, you're like, I don't know how to make this part not feel this way. And we can't make even ourselves or anybody else feel any certain way, right? They just feel what they feel. The witnessing, right? Just saying like when the part comes up or you invite them in. Sometimes I just find a moment where maybe you are going on a walk and a moment when you feel really close to self, whatever that may be, and saying, like, just will you come on this walk with me? And we don't even have to talk. We can just be side by side. I'll just hold you in my heart. And a lot of times, those parts, when they feel you in a sense of like steadiness, then they tend to be ready to talk more or even just be open to being witnessed. And they don't really need to change, right? They feel this way because they've been pushed into whatever corner and trying, it's that quote of like, people like change, they don't like to be changed. So
Oh, yeah.
if you have an agenda, right? If there's a part that has an agenda saying you need to change so that we can get closer to self, that part is going to be like, I'm not changing for you. You're not getting that from me. And
Yeah,
if
and
you,
I think that you're right. I think that that's a big part of what it is because I have another part that is totally like, "Let's go, let's get with the program and get
mm-hmm,
healthy and all this," you know?
mm-hmm,
And that one is not gonna drag along this other part. This other part needs to be loved and
mm-hmm, and
accepted.
witnessed.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
witnessed.
Yeah. So just finding a moment in the day, I almost think about it like sometimes at the end of the day when I'm going to sleep, and I try to do it in the morning too, but I'm more consistent at night of like, did you see Inside Out, that movie?
But yes, how
S-
so good, so
It's
good.
so perfect to explain parts.
It is.
Like it,
It's literally the parts movie.
like it's wonderful, but I'll almost imagine that like switchboard in my brain with all these little parts, and I'll just like go up there as self and be like, "How's everyone doing? Does anyone need anything? You want some ice cream? Do you want to cuddle? You know, and just try and see if anybody comes out as like, yeah, I need something, you know, try to tend to that part. But having a consistent practice, just like we needed as children, a consistent, steady presence in our lives. If you only show up for your parts when they're screaming at you, same as you only showed up for a toddler who's screaming at you, they're never going to trust you because you're
That's a
not
good
there for
point.
them. Yeah, it's just like when you are a child and if you didn't have a consistent, steady parent who came up to you every day and was like, "How are you? Do you need anything? What's your heart feel like today?" If they only come up to you when you're screaming, when you're shouting, when you have to break something, that's not really a consistent, steady leader. That's like an emergency worker. And so
Yeah,
showing up for your parts.
it's like we neglect ourselves just as we've been neglected in the past. We now are neglecting our parts that really just need to be witnessed. And if they're not witnessed, they can get louder and louder and louder until they come out in compulsive and harmful ways because they are trying to get your attention or they're trying to protect you from something. And um,
Mhm.
yeah, no, it's definitely a big IFS is almost like a big reparenting ritual. It's like just
Yeah.
uh, the first thing you really need to be able to do is to tap into that true self, which is actually kind of hard to do sometimes because for me at least, like my managers are basically just running the show all the time. Every now and then I get in with my true self. It's like I definitely want to live more with the true self, but
Mhm.
you know, it's a process, and,
It is.
I'm light years, I feel ahead of where I was, 3 years ago or whatever, like, when I was self-hating and self-doubting and unsure of why I felt all the things I felt. IFS was really able to give me words and vocabulary for all that and to help me find that healing, so I think
Mhm.
it's gonna be helpful for a lot of people in the
I
coming
agree.
decades.
I agree. I think more and more we're willing to look internally and realize like the callers coming inside the house. It's, you
Mhm,
know, all of
exactly.
our problems aren't externalized, and we live in a world that's very externalized and extrinsic value, right? And saying, you know, I'm going to retake this power that I get to respond and react and hold myself accountable. Of course, the world is an unfair place a lot of the times. And, you know, we have things happen to us all the time, especially as children that are out of our control and we have no capacity to change. But the freedom comes from within. And IFS just continues to, it helps give you the keys to unlock these parts. It's not easy work, as you can see in what we just practiced, right? Like you said, you've been doing it for years and it's still hard. It's always going to be hard. There's always going to be somebody in there who's so hell bent on protecting you, they won't even come out. They're like, nope, you're not finding me today.
I could already tell off the top of my head that, like, when we were gonna do this session today that there are parts that just don't wanna talk right now. But that one was willing to come forth and talk, and also a little bit discomforting knowing that your enemies also have parts that are
Oh,
just like, little kids trying to
And
figure
your
it out.
parents.
Yeah, people's parents, they're like, your parents have parts,
Mhm.
world leaders have parts, and
Mhm.
they're all just kind of scared little children trying to compensate for that, which makes me uncomfortable because I don't want to feel empathy for those people. But it doesn't absolve anyone, I think, of responsibility because we're all on this earth together, and if you can find a way not to harm other people, that's your responsibility. But it does give me a little hope that hopefully, as more and more people see these parts inside of them and witness them, that they will become more healthy, more whole, more happy people who are not going to be willing to do harm to others
Mm.
over time. I think there'll be more and more people like that. But right now, it's it's still a really crazy hard world out there. It always will be, but it's I think hopefully the human race overall that we're going to it does seem like there's a lot of awakening happening right now, like there's a,
Mhm.
a movement of awakening and even enlightenment, which to me is like I see awakening as like, okay, you're like Neo and like you've seen the Matrix, right? Like you've
One
woken
time. I've seen
woke
it exactly one time.
okay, yeah. So yeah, you've woken up and
Yeah.
kind of see the spells and everything. But enlightenment is like that's like when Neo becomes like the god or whatever. Like enlightenment to me is like I don't even know if I'll ever attain enlightenment, but it's something that is a good goal to have, I think, because
Mhm.
enlightenment essentially is just living with your true self.
Yeah.
Because your true self is connected to everything in that way. And
Mhm.
hopefully, as we move closer to that, we just see the world become a better place. That is
Yeah.
my hope.
Yeah. And as we wrap up today, just an invitation, two invitations from me, and if you have any, but I know there's like this image of sometimes like imagining people naked to like take the stress. If you're in a big
Yeah.
situation or you're going into a room, you feel kind of vulnerable. I invite you sometimes, especially if I'm feeling like extra sensitive in a situation. It's not so much, I'm like going in and I want to be intimidating. Like I'll walk into a grocery store and I'll be like, I'm just going to imagine everybody as a child right now. And then it makes so much more sense when like somebody is like freaking out in line because the line's taking too long, right? Because it's like a 6-year-old and
Yeah.
6-year-olds
Yeah.
are impatient. Or like it's kind of scary, but when you're driving and there people are being horrible on the road, and I'm just like, that's because there's just like a 5-year-old driving over there, right? There, people are all, a lot of us are still blended with parts, and when you're with somebody and you're like, you're acting like a child, it's literally because they are being a child. Like that child is coming out and saying like, "I'm in charge right now," you know? So, if you're feeling like extra sensitive or people just like really extra suck in a situation, just instead of imagining them without their clothes on, just like imagine a tinier version of themselves
Mm.
and things will make so much more sense about why they're acting the way they are. It doesn't absolve them, but it just makes it easier to swallow other people's actions sometimes when you know that they're coming, when it's a part that's coming out and not a self.
Yep, that's a great point, and it extends to our partners as well. When you're
Mhm.
in a bash with your partner, you can try and make a conscious choice to see their child, which is really what is having the problem moment. So, and of course within yourself, when you were saying, why are you acting like a child? Of course, that's pointing to myself. Like I feel like that happens to me quite often. I definitely revert back to my child, and often it's like I'll laugh inappropriately,
Mhm.
um, and that's literally just like my inner child coming out and like laughing at something that shouldn't be laughed at. Like when somebody is trying to, like, let's say when one of my kids is trying to talk to me about something serious, to them, they perceive as serious, and maybe it makes me a little bit uncomfortable or that part or whatever, and I'll just start laughing. And of course, that's just a childish thing to do when someone's trying to be serious. And yeah, it comes out. It just comes out, and it's good to again, to me, the clarity is one of the biggest things. You're not going to become a freaking perfect person doing
Yeah.
IFS, but you're going to have clarity, and clarity is the beginning of freedom. So
Mhm.
that is why IFS is so important to me. Seeing everyone as, seeing their children, them as children. I like that. Was that it? Was that your I thought you said you had 2
Oh,
things.
yeah, and the other one was, if there's a moment in the day where you feel really open and clear, not so much inviting any particular part 'cause that already has an agenda in it, but just saying, like, whatever image comes up for you, the switchboard in your head, maybe younger versions of yourself, just saying, like, "Hey, I'm here. I'm here, and I wanna let all of you know I love you, and if you need me, I'm here right now."
Yeah,
And
like a
doing that
check-in.
consistent daily check-in, not so much like, "I'm gonna check in when you're screaming at me, but I feel calm, everyone's around, does anybody need anything?" That is a really powerful way then for when there are moments to when you have a part that's like, I'm not ready to talk to you," it's 'cause there hasn't been trust built yet, and consistency is a really powerful way to build trust.
It's another great point, Tracy. Like you said, with the parents, what kind of parent are you, or do you have? If they're just around whenever you are screaming and crying, what we are wanting to do is become the parents and check in with ourselves, and do it out of love and grace rather than out of a need to get our parts to kind of shush down, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
very nice. Thank you
Yeah.
for that, and thank you for the session today, Tracy. That
Oh,
was
you're
very helpful.
welcome. Thank you
Um,
for being willing and open.
yes, it's helpful. I'll
Yeah.
be more aware of this part. Yeah, thanks. And as we go forward with other weeks in our podcast, we are going to be talking more about IFS. It's just a huge part of me and Tracy's lives right now. And we'll be exploring, more psychology and things like that. But yeah,
And how to apply it to your life.
and how to apply it to your life. And this
Mhm.
week, as Tracy was saying, try to apply it in that way, as far as, seeing the children and everyone and checking in with yourself. And then we will be back to check in with you next week.
Yes, thank you so much for being here.